Laoshi Lawrence McElroy here for Water Tiger School of Taijiquan. Back with a Tai Chi focus in the shoot. So we're still on the every 3 weeks schedule. So hopefully there'll be one more before this year's World Tai Chi Day at the end of April. That's April 29th this year. So there's that. We are hosting our usual event in Diamond in the Pines here in Suffolk County on Long Island. So anyway, so there's that. Not really any other business to talk about. Let's start with the t-shirt. So this is the second time I've worn this particular Yin Yang t-shirt. The first was way back in the beginning on April 6th. It was a YouTube/Facebook upload and the third of 3 parts on the 13 root energies of Tai Chi. So anyway, so there's sort of a reason that we chose this particular t-shirt, like a reason we chose this particular warm-up that we're going to do today with today's focus. But anyway, our focus will be on variations on the posture of cloud hands. And sort of from a Water Tiger School perspective, we think in some aspects, cloud hands, wave hands like clouds, waving hands in clouds, etc. Really sort of exemplifies a little bit of what the yin yang is about, what the Tai Chi symbol is about. And that's because the upper body, regardless of your approach to the movement of the upper body, part of today's focus, is sort of the yin side of the equation. And to be able to have that floaty, waving hands like clouds, or in clouds, you have to have a very strong root, a very solid base. So anyway, so there's that, and also the yin yang symbol. You know, we know it as the static symbol that just sits here or in an ear or something, or on the handy dandy tea bottle. Well, I have it. But it's actually 3-dimensional, and it moves in all those directions at one time, which is just what the Shou Dan Tien does to facilitate our movement through the body. So anyway, we tend to see, a lot of people say cloud hands or Yun Shou. Water Tiger usually refers to the posture as waving hands like clouds. So we point out that the clouds, the clouds like you are waving are nice white puffy clouds and not the storm clouds. However, we found that if we don't enunciate, people think that we're talking about doing something with a big red nose on our face and big floppy black feet. In other words, they think we're saying wave hands like clowns, but it's not, it's clouds. So anyway, we're going to generalize some other approaches to wave hands like clouds and get to ours as we get into the meat of today's video. Our warm-up today is another piece from Water Tiger School's, sort of at this point we just call it iconic 10-piece Tai Chi Qigong breathing set. It is the 4th posture in that set. What we call settled Qi to the Dan Tien, what more traditionally is known as the Qi is sunk to the Dan Tien. And again, the reason for that particular choice is movement in cloud hands really represents that movement from the Qi Dan Tien. So we thought settled Qi to the Dan Tien, though it doesn't specify it's the lower, it is the lower, the Qi Dan Tien, would be a good thing to do. Now, normally, if you know Water Tiger School, if you're in that category of person, you know that when we focus on cloud hands, a lot of times we want to lead into it with a different warm-up. And that warm-up is turn and circle. We're not going to do that today. It's actually, we have done that. We're seeking not to repeat our warm-ups as much as we possibly can, though we're getting close to the end of our current list. And we did turn and circle as a primary focus way back in the day on April 21st of 2020. It was part of the Facebook Live series. It was Water Tiger for West Babylon, for our suspended program at the West Babylon Public Library at the time. And it was in a series that we did that was Laoshi favorites, and turn and circle is one of my favorites. If you look below in the text, you'll find a link to that particular video. Keep in mind, it was month 2 of our beginning our Facebook Live and our YouTube experience. So a couple of things: no barber, and 2, kind of the very beginning of our use of the technology. So please forgive us for that, me especially. But anyway, so if you want to check out what Turn and Circle is about, because we really feel that Turn and Circle sort of is a good pathway into cloud hands, but we want to do Subtle Qi to the Dan Tien. So anyway, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to use getting into that particular warm-up to sort of spend time with our vertical alignment like we normally do when we're doing things like this. But we're going to start by me crunching my mitt. A little shake here. Just shaking things out. Kind of feels pretty good. I am going to go with a little bit of turn just because I like this. And this is, one of the reasons that we do this with wave hands like clouds, because you'll notice that this turn is indeed moving my hands from side to side in a more casual way that sort of represents, the 3 or 4 basic versions of cloud hands. Everybody does this stuff differently. We're going to talk about that when we get to that part of the video a little bit more. But anyway, Subtle Qi to the Dan Tien. You'll recognize the movement as being like when we open. When we talk about opening and closing, that's been another focus in the past. But the hands float up, out, away from the body. Sort of as if, but not in reality. I'm not actually miming that I have my hands on a ball. But it is a ball-like movement, like the ball is floating up, out, away from the body. And notice, as I'm rolling in, a couple of things. 1, the elbows flare. And 2, that roll in starts kind of at about chest level. So when I come up over the top of that rounded sphere, I'm not going up over the top of my shoulders and down. Funny story. Way back in the day, I was doing public class, Water Tiger had been booked at a public library, a different one than West Babylon. And that particular community room had a stage. So the curriculum allowed us to do the breathing set. We did the breathing set. I think actually that was a seminar on the breathing set, if I remember right. And we got to Subtle Qi to the Dan Tien, and I'm on the stage. And I'm talking about only coming up to, chest height and rolling in. And the people who were on the floor, looking at me at the stage, were trying to match the height of my hands with me standing on the stage, as opposed to the physicality of themselves. It was kind of funny and sad at the same time. So it's in, down, and out, and that movement is repeated. Now, of course, this is centered in, as I said we're going to begin with, our vertical alignment. So our shoulder width, different than some others, defined by the drop of the shoulder, not the outside of the shoulder. Not even really, we used to describe this as the decline of the shoulder, sort of where if Ant-Man were walking out across your shoulders, he'd start to slide. And it sort of still is, but if you can feel the top of the shoulder joint, that's what should split the heel in half. And the same on this side. And of course, the feet parallel. That's something to keep in mind. However you manifest your footwork with cloud hands, again, with the styles that we're going to address from our little review, the toes are always forward. I'm not going to turn my feet in any direction. But anyway, so as close to parallel as possible. That's sort of what we do at Water Tiger School, because people have ankle issues. They might have things holding their ankles together, screws, plates, that sort of thing. So you might have to be abducted or adducted a little bit, but you do want them as close to parallel as possible, and knees tracking the same direction as the toes. We have what some people refer to as our qua squat. The knees are open. The perineum is anchored toward the earth, putting the hips underneath the torso underneath the shoulders. The chest is sunk and the back is rounded. Hence, the elbows opening up as you come in. If you don't open up the elbows as you come in, and if you come in too close, you lose the sunken chest, the rounded back. You lose the relaxation between the inner upper arms and the sides of the torso, the lats and the obliques. Boom. Intercostal muscles, all those things, right? So in, down, and out. Crown point of the head is held, not lifted, right? We're not doing yoga, so we're not lengthening the spine here. But the spine hangs like a string of pearls. So there's an anchor on the perineum, the base of the pelvic bowl, the Q yin, the bottom of the C. That's represented by the bottom of the stopwatch band. Crown point of the head held. Again, not lifted. If I lift, the string becomes stiff, rigid. I want the string to stay soft and supple. So the spine hangs like, in this case, a string of stopwatch, but the actual principle is string of pearls. And that is done with the chin from parallel, a slight tuck down, right? The crown point of the head is toward the back third of the skull. Not the center of the top of the skull where a lot of people put it, but that back third, kind of where the center line of the body is crossed by a line from opening of ear to opening of ear. And that's our position. We'll breathe into subtle Qi to the Dan Tien. At this point, when we talk about an expansion and compression from the Qi Dan Tien, we're talking about that as the image breath. And the image breath is the Qi expands from the Qi Dan Tien with our actual physical breath at this point as we physically exhale. And the compression, the return of Qi, the flow of Qi back into the Qi Dan Tien on the physical inhalation. So it looks like flower opening out through the body on the exhalation, and on the inhale, closing back in. And when we talk about this in terms of our primary, well, our combined from primary and coiling sets of stationary Tai Chi Qigong, this piece is from the primary set, that sort of our movements of preparation are generally the compressions, and the execution, generally the expansion. So in this case, in subtle Qi to the Dan Tien, the inhalation is the preparation, sort of the gathering. And the exhalation is the execution. Now that might seem antithetical to the fact that we're settling Qi to the Dan Tien, but that is the case regardless. We're going to breathe into a palms down position. Both expanding the Qi through the body while also rooting it in the Qi Dan Tien is how I should have described that. Nice soft breaths, so everything that we normally talk about when we talk about Tai Chi Qigong, when we talk about our Zhuang Zhuan, our standing post meditation. Body should be relaxed in this structure holding us up more than our own muscles. Breath should be three things: deep, relaxed, so quiet, and the third is the image breath that I was talking about. And the third major component is the calm, relaxed mind. So I'm not going to dictate what aspect of the breath to float the hands. I'll find an aspect of the breath to float the hands, and by floating the hands we mean simply activating the wrists. Notice. Wrist activate. The arms are pulled slightly forward just because of the compression on the top of the wrist, the extension on the bottom of the wrist. I'm not literally floating my hands up yet. Then find an exhale. And inhale up and out, away from the body, not overextending. In and exhale down. That was 1. We're going to go to 9. Inhale. About halfway over the top, exhale. And we often talk in this posture, especially when we do what we refer to as our time expanded breathing set, when we really slow it down. You know, is the ball rising, carrying the hands up, or the hands rising, allowing the ball to follow? Is the ball turning, carrying the hands in, or the hands turning, rotating the ball in? Are the hands descending, gently pressing the ball down, or is the ball descending, carrying the hands down? That was about 3. It's both and neither. Sort of like, is the movement driving the breath, or the breath driving the movement? It's both and it's neither. regardless, a gathering, a recognition of the qi, allowing it to settle to the Shou Dan Tien on the execution. We're going to do 3 more after this. It might be more than my 9. Probably is. One more just for good measure. Then we're going to do our closing, which has the same upper body movement. We're going to settle here for a moment, though. And just take some time to breathe and relax. Check in on the arms, making sure that I haven't overactivated them. Now find your right foot. The right foot is the one that's going to stay grounded. The left foot is the one that's going to move. So this is the left side of my body. This is the foot that's going to move. This is the right side of my body. This is the foot that's going to stay still. And as the hands float up, this time out away from the body, crown point of the head, base of the pelvic bowl settles over the ball of the right foot. As the hands come in, the foot comes in. As the hands go down, I press the heel down. Knee pop is optional, if you heard that. And then a little rebound. Pulls the hands into the Dan Tien. And there you go. So there's the warm-up. Again, the idea there was to focus on the Shou Dan Tien as we get that movement going through the rest of the session. So we're not going to do that many different versions. As we always say, everybody does this differently, even within this little demonstration, workshop-y kind of thing. You're going to see 2 different approaches to Jung-style Tai Chi or Jung-style Tai Chi. But we're going to do Jung, sort of a more traditional approach. We're going to do Chen. We're going to do a Chen. Let me put it this way. Again, generalizations. We're going to do Sun. We're going to do the second version of Jung. And then talk about Water Tiger's version, sort of how it came about, that sort of thing. Because it started as more traditional Jung style. And again, different people will step differently. We've seen the sideways walking, you know, that, well, let me go this way. Most people are accustomed to going from the right to the left, you know, where they're actually simply stepping with the heels. Now, Jung family tradition usually says there's a problem with that. And the Jung family usually doesn't come in quite as close as Water Tiger School does. Jung families normally to the toes, but not really a lot of real estate between the ball of the foot and the heel. And others, and I'm just going to go back the other direction, will step with the side of the foot and roll in. Oops. Step with the side of the foot. And sort of the same thing coming in, that it's from the inside of the instep to the outside. Close the space inside of the instep to the outside. And some would say that that helps keep the toes forward. Ours, because, well, we'll get to ours when we get to ours. But anyway, a word about diversity. Now, a lot of people have this opinion. Understandable, but it's not in Water Tiger School's point of view. And that's diversity is weakness. In other words, because so many people do all these things so differently, it weakens the art. We actually think it strengthens it. Wow, that was bad this morning, wasn't it? Let's see, hold on. It strengthens it. It exemplifies the richness, the flexibility, the universality of this art we all play. Everybody has reasons behind why they do what they do. And those reasons work for them and for their lineage. And as you know, if you've been paying attention to anything that we do in this series since March of 2020, our Tai Chi evolves. We experiment. We're challenged by the way different people do things. We see something performed differently than the way we do, a different approach, a different reason for that approach. We test that. We play with it, probably a better word. And we determine, hey, this is actually a good idea. I think we will adapt it into our lineage. Or, hey, I think our way, our way still works better. And that's what you do. You investigate, you ask, you ponder carefully, you choose wisely. Expose yourself to as much as possible. Keep what works for you, disregard the rest. And that's the power that is available to us in our diversity. So a traditional Jung approach to the upper body movement, and this is what we did at Black Dragon School when I was training, is this palm in-ish, well, not really ish, but palm in, elbows dropped, other palm down, sort of tabletop-ish, but the fingers stay mostly forward. And the exchange happens, turn, switch, turn, switch, turn, switch, turn. And I've seen the Jung family tradition being a little bit more flowy, where the step is coming at the switch. And I've also seen switch, step, switch, step. I've seen ball, heel. I've seen heel, ball. I've seen instep to foot. Oops. Instep to foot. Oh, casual closing. So that's more sort of the traditional Jung style approach. It can be a little bit more flowy, as I said, stepping on the switch as opposed to switching and then stepping. But you see that sort of palm in-ish, ideally sort of where I feel that is and where it was at Black Dragon School. The punch is coming in. It's still getting that, coming up underneath that punch, blocking and carrying it to the side. But it's a palm in. And you might, at that block, wrap around. But anyway, so there's that. Chen. Now, a lot of people would usually probably do Sun before Chen, but I like tying the Jung and the Chen together because a lot of people think the way we do things at Water Tiger School sort of has more of a blended Jung-Chen approach. Chen is a sweep across the bottom. So the palm is in across the bottom. The palm is out at the top, not palm in, and the elbow is high. So you have this sweep across the bottom, palm out across the top, and now you definitely have, if you want to grab, that's not really sort of how we think about wave hands like clouds at Water Tiger School, but the elbow is high, so you also have that hidden application of an elbow strike, but you have that very definite sweep across the bottom. Oops. As much as I prepared for this shoot today, it's still very difficult for me to do things that I don't normally do. And the stepping, same, Again, well, it might be a little bit more formal in Chen, hard telling, but I've seen presentations where, again, it's ball of foot. And you do the switch, and then the step, and the switch, and then the step, I've seen heel stepping. I've seen instep stepping. So there's Tien. Now Sun style is a little bit more like Yang style, only the palm is out. So you have, instead of palm in, an elbow a little bit higher but still dropped. The elbow's a little bit more dropped. Palm is out. You'll also notice in each of these, there's a different activation through the arm, the hand, the wrist, the forearm, the elbow, the biceps, triceps, elbows, into the lats, into the chest, and into the shoulders. So you feel those differences, a lot more activation, here you do feel some activation there and into the abs even, sort of on the outside of the biceps, the top of the shoulder, the trap, etc. Here, it's very much into the trap and really going down the obliques and the lat muscles. And a little bit more into the spine too. In Sun style, which again has the palm down-ish, palm out, elbow down-ish. So you'll actually notice when we get to Water Tiger School's version that it actually almost appears like a combination of the three. And again, with the stepping, you can see Sun style as most of them might go ball of foot. But you'll probably also see heel. You'll probably also see, instep to foot, instep to foot. So the last of the not Water Tiger School version is a second style of Yang style that I just found. Okay, whatever. And its main difference, there are 2 points. One is the fingertips lead across the bottom. They lead across the bottom as you're going across the bottom. All the other Yang stylists, including the traditional Yang family instructional video, have the fingertips sort of moving at the end of the arm, but mostly forward. And this had a very definite. And you have that switch from here to what is then referred to as a wave. Palm turns out, and that wave, at the wave, is where they step. So they switch and turn, leading with the fingertips, and at that wave, they step. So turning the hand out, step, switch. Sorry, I'm screwing up the upper body. It's palm in. Let's do that again. So palm in, fingertips leading, wave and step. Switch. Palm in, fingertips leading, wave and step. Switch. Palms leading, fingertips leading, sorry, not palm leading. Wave at the step. Switch. Fingertips leading, wave, step. Switch. Fingertips leading, wave, step. A little casual closing. I've been closing as much as I should during this today. So that is a different style approach to Yang style. So again, everything is coming from here. Didn't really talk about that, but hopefully you see that through the movement. Doesn't matter if it's traditional Yang, that turn at the center. Wave hands like clouds, Yun Shou, cloud hands, waving hands in clouds, coming from the center. Tien, still, from the center. Even the shift of the weight comes from the center. And something more Sun stylish. So there are the others. And again, countless others. Everybody does this stuff differently. Now, Water Tiger Schools has had an evolution. As I said, back at Black Dragon School, it was more of a traditional. Over the years, we begin moving in the direction of finding the movement more through the body. And with the caveat that it has to have matching intents. And wave hands like clouds to us has always been that soft block, which is, you know, the punch is coming in this way, and most hard styles stop it. And I've actually seen some people applying Tai Chi this way in cloud hands, and they stop that punch coming in. We blend with it, be it palm out, because then you have that switch at the end too, right? As you go here, you have to turn out to come down. So there's still that turnout at the end. But it's coming underneath that punch and redirecting it to the side. The other hand, the lower hand, a block. It can be a strike. But just as this is a knife edge hand block for us at Water Tiger School, this is a ridge hand block for us at Water Tiger School. And our pattern is very circular. By the way, something that I didn't point out and didn't really talk about in Chen style, it's actually the arms fully extend at that switch. The others tend to happen more within where the arms are bent. And in Chen style, the tendency, again, a generalization, is that that switch happens at a full extension, which again is something that Water Tiger School does. Ours looks more like a double windmill, and it's palm out at top when it needs to be, when your body tells it to. It's palm in across the bottom. And we too, sort of like the Chen, have this more full extension. And that's our movement. Again, rounded, propeller-like. The arms, regardless of these different styles, you'll notice that all these changes happen in the front plane of the body. They don't go to the side. Now, there might be some that do, right? But the ones that we demonstrated today, all outside of the body. If you bring the hands into the line of the body, then you lose that connection. So it simply follows the turn. And our stepping is very definitely to the balls of our feet, because we want that extra real estate when we step in our cloud hands at Water Tiger School. Now, this might seem antithetical to our, wow, I'm using that word a lot today, aren't I? To our natural movement here. But if I step with my heel high, then I have more real estate between my heel and the ground, and I get more activation and more movement in the leg. So the leg stays alive. To me, one of the issues and one of our approaches at Water Tiger School, one of the things upon which we focus is more practical side of if part of me moves, all of me moves. If part of me is still, all of me is still. There is, of course, the deeper, more esoteric meaning of that. The practical is everything should be moving all the time. If one thing stops, then everything should stop. So if something stops, if the weight shift is done, then there shouldn't be any upper body movement because something has stopped. Everything moves, which is why we like, you know, the more traditional, at least stepping on the switch in Jung style. So you don't have that step, switch, step, switch. So there's more flow. We talk about the step in should happen before the hands pass 9 o'clock, and the step out should happen before the hands pass 3 o'clock. And you'll notice two things. With this fuller extension, like in Chen style, I have a balance of upper body extended to the left, lower body extended to the right. And on this side, to step out, I have the upper body extended to the right to balance that step out. And because of the turn of the body, now I'm not turning my hips, because if I turn my hips, then I'm going to do this sort of chubby checker thing across the space, and I want to keep the toes forward and the heels back. But as I turn and my hands get closer together, because of the turn of the upper body, as my hands get closer together, there's a message through the connectivity of the body that that foot wants to come in. Just as after bringing that foot in, as my hands get closer to that 3 o'clock point, the compression on this side wants to pop that foot out. So if I'm listening through my body, the stepping happens without me having to think about it. Where does it flow? Our palm in and palm out, again, when it becomes natural to do. We don't force it. We allow it to happen. So it turns. And by the way, what that allows us to do is see how natural this movement is. This is all coming from my center. And as long as I stay loose and relaxed, I'm doing a very speedy version of wave hands like clouds. Now, I usually joke in class the only reason that I do that is that I'm very insecure and have a very big ego. But no, it's to really show that that movement is quite natural if I just get out of my way, don't think about what is supposed to unfold, and allow it to. Those little twirlies are possible. One last note. You may notice that this version looks a lot like a certain individual that is over on my right and behind me. Probably can't really see from the camera who that really is. But it's that guy. Yes, that's an autographed photo from Ralph Macchio. One of my public class students back in the day worked at a business that his family frequented. And I ended up with that photo. Quite a surprise. She didn't tell me it was coming. And we meant to check the date and we didn't. Came home one day from a public class and had a voicemail about this time of year on our office voicemail from Mr. Macchio, wishing us well for that year's World Tai Chi Day. Same reason my public class student sort of prodded his wife to prod him to give us a call. So anyway, yes, it is wax on and wax off, in other words. This is the movement for actually wax off, I believe, because I think the right hand is wax on. Now, for years, I misinterpreted exactly how similar and how different they were, because I always thought it was, again, that left hand stopping. But no, even their wax on, wax off was the same underhand block, but of course it was a more rigid block. So it was more of a knife edge blow than it was an absorbing, turning block. But yeah, anyway, it's wax on and wax off. It always will be. Our last public class that involved wave hands like clouds, even before I said it, somebody said, is this wax on and wax off? But that's our cloud hands. Water Tiger schools, cloud hands, ball of foot, lots of real estate. That's what allows, to feel more of that turn and that twisting energy, the Qian that sends that root deep into the earth to allow for the floating upper body movement. And yes, you can still have floaty upper body movement when things are in a little bit different physical position. But again, here, these are things that I sort of have to make happen. Through intent, it's still relaxed, but it drives with a different intent. So each of these are driven by the style, by the purpose of the movement or its intent, and that's it. So they all have their basis, but it's that nice, light, airy upper body movement that we want to maintain. So that we have hands that appear to be like clouds, hands that can float or wave in clouds, or hands that wave like clouds. I hope that all made sense. Again, sorry if I butchered, your own style's approach to cloud hands. I did the best I could, given, again, this is ours. But it did start in Young style. I mean, this almost feels like going home, right? This particular one. So if you start to study wave hands like clouds, what we would always suggest at Water Tiger School is you go whatever direction and only the direction that is necessary for what it is that you're doing. In other words, if it's the 24, depending upon your movement in the 24, it may only be to the right. So if that's the case, then yeah, practice to the right, get that down, and then come back and learn to the left. However, there are some people in the 24, and their long form, for instance, that will go both directions. That they'll start and they'll do wave hands like clouds to the left, actually not the right. And then they'll finish that pass to the left and then come back to the right. Water Tigers 24 goes to the left only. Water Tigers long form goes to the right only. But that can be tricky for people because a lot of times what happens, it doesn't matter what your style is. You go the other direction and suddenly people want to do this sort of more white crane-ish kind of movement with the cross body as opposed to left turning to the left. And notice that's consistent with all these different approaches. Traditional Young, turning to the left, left hand, which is why turn in a circle is so good because I'm turning to the left, left hand's leading to the left. I'm turning to the right, right hand's leading to the right. And that's what it is. Here, that's what it is. Here, turning to the right, right arm, right hand leading. Turning to the right, right arm, right hand leading to the right, left following. And left leading to the left. Oops, sorry. Left leading to the left. Wave, step. Wave, step. So that's another reason that we like this particular posture, because it's quite simple in its following that movement of the Dan Tien. Things go to the left. When you turn to the left, no sort of cross-lateral movement as much. Things go to the right when you turn to the right. So I hope that made some sort of sense as you watched it. A little rambly today, but not too bad. We got to all the points that I think we wanted to make. We did, by the way, when I mentioned the voicemail, we did want to play the voicemail in every way that we tried to bring it into the sound of the video failed. So sorry you don't get to hear that. But anyway, it was a nice message. He mentioned that his wife, sort of poked him into doing this, and he'd heard about the event, and that he actually, when he was on set for The Outsiders, that Francis Ford Coppola had them doing some Tai Chi. And he also referred to the voicemail as his random good deeds sort of kind of thing. But anyway, so there you go. I hope you found this useful. I hope you found it informative. Again, use the different styles, sort of play with the way that you do wave hands like clouds. Find the footwork that works for you. Find the upper body movement that works for you with and feeling the intent. But it should all be loose and relaxed. Back in the day, I was probably more like almost a Patrick Swayze version of wave hands like clouds. It's really changed since then. And there you go. So probably in the rotation, I know last time we had said that it was going to be Qigong and it ended up being physical training. But we'll get to some Qigong hopefully in 3 weeks, but that's going to be getting close to World Tai Chi Days. So we might be a little delayed in the next video, but we're staying as close as we can to the every 3-week thing. We'll do the best we can and keep going. There's still some stuff in the queue. And there you go. So as always, you know, the comment section below is, we always screen everything, but the reason we screen it isn't to screen out negative comments. It's to screen out advertising, shall we say, especially a special kind of advertising. If you're lonely, because the YouTube algorithms don't seem to track that out. And we also post a link to this on our Facebook page, which is a little bit more open, but sort of the same thing. If you flame us in either place, comment's not going to go through. It's not going to stay up. And on Facebook, it'll get you blocked off our Facebook if you flame us. Constructive criticism, always appreciated. And there you go. So thanks. Take care. Keep waving those hands like clouds. We'll catch you next time.